Andrew awoke to the softest kisses. His wife, Megan, sat beside him on the bed, her smile warm and affectionate. "Good morning," she greeted him. "You were sleeping so peacefully." Yawning and stretching, Andrew reached out, pulling her closer. The day ahead was going to be hectic. First, he would drive her to the train station, then head straight to work, and later, he had plans to meet up with his friends in the evening. "Remind me, when will you be back?" he asked. "In 3 days," Megan replied while tucking the last few items into her suitcase. "We have a casual get-together today, and the conference officially starts tomorrow." Even though she was only traveling to the next town for a short trip, her suitcase was packed to the brim with clothes and shoes. A familiar sense of melancholy settled over Andrew. He had always hated farewells. But this morning, an unusual anxiety crept in. "I'm going to miss you," he murmured. Megan wrapped her arms around him from behind, nuzzling into his neck. The drive to the station, the lingering goodbye kiss. The day rushed by in a blur. His phone constantly vibrated with notifications. Megan kept him updated through texts and social media posts. One photo showed the train car and the scenery outside her window. Another captured the restaurant where she and her colleagues had lunch. Andrew knew nearly every detail of her itinerary, where she was dining, which street her hotel was on, and the location of the conference. That evening, while heading out to meet his friends, his phone buzzed again. It was a short message from Megan, letting him know she just arrived at the hotel, completely exhausted, and was about to switch off her phone and get some sleep. He sent a quick reply. "Sleep well. Sweet dreams." Then, slipping his phone into his pocket, he turned his attention back to the night ahead. "Hey, man." Mike, Jay, and David were already waiting outside the bar. They exchanged quick handshakes before heading in. "So, how's life, Andrew?" David smirked. "Guess you're a free man tonight, huh?" The group burst into laughter. Unlike Andrew, all of them were still single. They settled at a table and ordered drinks, but it wasn't long before Mike noticed Andrew's distant expression. "Dude, lighten up," he said, nudging him. "We barely get to hang out, and you look like you're attending a funeral." Andrew exhaled heavily. "I can't help it. I miss Megan." He ran a hand through his hair. "Honestly, I'm this close to jumping in my car and driving to her. I should have just taken time off and gone with her." His friends exchanged exasperated glances. "You're unbelievable, man," one of them sighed. 15 minutes passed, and Andrew still hadn't touched his beer. Then, without warning, he stood up. "All right, guys, I'm out." With a quick farewell, he walked away, already knowing where he truly wanted to be. Andrew hailed a cab back to his apartment, grabbed his car, and set off without hesitation. Excitement coursed through him. He couldn't wait to surprise Megan. A 200-kilometer drive? No big deal. He could handle it. The road stretched before him, mostly empty, the glow of streetlights flickering past in his peripheral vision. As he neared her city, he eased off the gas and punched the hotel's address into his GPS. "Turn left in 20 meters. You have arrived at your destination," the robotic voice announced. His car rolled to stop in front of a sleek, high-end hotel in the heart of downtown. Inside, a receptionist with a bright smile greeted him from behind the polished front desk. Her name tag read Veronica. "Good evening, sir. How may I assist you?" Flashing a confident grin, Andrew leaned against the counter. "Hey, Veronica, I'm here to surprise my wife. She's staying in room 278. "Let me verify that for you," she replied, still smiling. "Could I have her full name, please?" He recited Megan's details as she typed swiftly on her keyboard. Then her expression shifted. "I'm sorry, sir, but there's no one by that name in our system. And room 278 is unoccupied." Andrew's stomach clenched. His knees felt weak. That can't be right," he stammered. "Can you check under these names?" He listed off 3 of Megan's colleagues, the ones who were supposed to be at the conference with her. Veronica's fingers danced across the keyboard once more. After a moment, she shook her head. "I'm afraid none of those names are in our records either." Concern flickered in her eyes. Dizzy, Andrew stumbled outside, bracing himself against the cool exterior of the building. In the distance, muffled bass thumped from a nightclub. His hands trembled as he pulled out his phone and dialed Megan, Once, twice, 3 times. Straight to voicemail. Panic gnawed at him. What now? Should he just drive home, wait out the 3 days, and confront her when she returned? Then a thought struck him. A while back, when he bought her a new phone, he had installed a tracking app, just in case she ever lost it. His breath hitched as he got back into his car, opened the app, and waited. A blinking dot appeared. His pulse spiked. The location wasn't a hotel. It was a nightclub. Jaw clenched. Andrew climbed out and stormed toward the entrance. The bouncer barely spared him a glance as he slipped a few bills into his hand. Pushing through the doors, he was hit by a wall of sound. Pounding music, flashing lights, bodies moving in sync to the beat. The air was thick with alcohol and sweat, laughter, and slurred conversations blending into the chaos. His eyes swept the crowded room. A row of bar stools lined the counter, occupied by men and women in various states of intoxication. Colors swirled under the neon glow, dancers grinding against each other, lost in the moment. His heart pounded wildly in his chest. Then he saw her, a silhouette he knew better than anyone. Forcing himself forward, he wove through the crowd until she came into full view. Megan. She wore a shimmering dress, the strap slipping from her shoulder. Seated on the bar counter, legs parted as much as the dress allowed, she leaned toward a man lounging between them. His hands caressed her thighs, his gaze dripping with desire. Andrew's breath caught in his throat. Then, as if time had slowed to a crawl, she leaned in and kissed him, a deep, lingering kiss, one that made Andrew feel like the ground beneath him had disappeared. And then, finally, she pulled away. She pulled away and turned, her eyes locking onto Andrew. A flash of panic crossed her face as she hastily yanked the fallen strap back onto her shoulder and slid off the bar. Her expression flickered through a whirlwind of emotions, tears welling up as she stood frozen. Andrew remained motionless, staring at her, his chest tight with disbelief. With unsteady hands, she reached for him, but he recoiled. Then, in a sudden burst of rage, he grabbed her by the shoulders. "Why?" he demanded, his voice barely cutting through the deafening music. She had no answer. His grip loosened, and without another word, he turned on his heel, shoving his way through the crowd. The pulsing bass seemed distant now, muffled under the storm raging in his mind. Outside, rain streaked across his windshield as he sped away, wipers swiping furiously in sync with his erratic breathing. A thought gnawed at him. He wanted to call his father, ask how he had survived when Andrew's mother had left, but he swallowed the urge. His dad had carried that pain once. He wouldn't burden him with it again. The next morning, Andrew wasted no time. He gathered every trace of Megan's presence, the books she loved to curl up with after work, the little souvenirs they'd picked up on vacations, even the gifts they had exchanged over the years. One by one, he stuffed them into a large cardboard box, scrawling junk across the side in bold letters. He hauled it outside, only to find Megan already waiting on the porch, suitcase in hand. A car idled nearby, the same man from the club sitting behind the wheel. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Megan clutched her purse, her fingers gripping the strap like a lifeline. Andrew tightened his hold on the box. His voice was cold, steady. "Take your trash and get out of my sight." He dropped the box at her feet. The lid flopped open, spilling clothes, trinkets, and personal keepsakes onto the pavement. A delicate scrap of lace landed near her sandals. Megan scrambled to gather everything, hands shaking as she stuffed items back into the box. But Andrew had already turned away. Without hesitation, he stepped inside and locked the door behind him. A strange sense of relief settled in his chest. Megan wasted no time moving in with her new lover, but the fairy tale she had imagined quickly crumbled. Despite sharing a home, he never brought up marriage. Deep down, she knew why. He didn't love her, and he never would. She feared that if she pushed him, he would leave just as easily as she had walked away from Andrew. For 6 months, she convinced herself things would get better. But instead of romance, she became his personal servant. He never expressed gratitude, never showed affection. No matter how hard she tried, the warmth she had once shared with Andrew was nowhere to be found. This man only knew how to take, never to give. Then the violence started. At first, it was subtle, a rough grip, a shove, a harsh word that cut deeper than any bruise. But soon it escalated. She learned to hide the bruises beneath long sleeves and careful smiles. She avoided old friends, terrified they would see through the facade and realize what she had thrown away. Then one night, the violence spiraled beyond anything she could conceal. The beating left her crumpled and broken, barely able to move. The hospital walls became her prison, the sterile lights exposing the truth she had tried so desperately to ignore. Her parents arrived, their faces etched with grief and disappointment. Without hesitation, they took her home. As she lay in bed, bandaged and aching, the weight of her choices crushed her. She had destroyed the best thing she had ever had, and now there was no way to get it back.